When Ohio became a state in 1803, Dayton became the seat of Montgomery County. Beyond its initial growth, the town remained relatively small until the War of 1812. During this conflict, Dayton served as a mobilization point for American attacks on Canada and against British troops in the northwestern part of the United States. During and shortly after the war, a tobacco factory, 2 banks, textile mills, and several other businesses were begun. With the completion of the Miami and Erie Canal in 1829, Dayton was linked to Cincinnati, and the town continued to thrive. 9 turnpikes connected Dayton to other areas of the state. By the 1840s, Dayton was one of the largest and wealthiest communities in Ohio. Dayton was heavily involved in Ohio's early industrialization. By the late 1800s, the community had become the center of many types of industry. Several newspapers and other journals supported a growing publishing industry. Many of these publications dealt with either religious issues or agricultural interests. One of the first labor organizations in Ohio, the Mechanics Association, was founded in 1813. Over the next century, a number of labor unions were organized in Dayton. The flood of 1913 caused a significant loss of life and property in Dayton and temporarily halted the city's growth. But the people of Dayton recovered from the disaster and helped create the Miami Conservancy District to limit future flooding. During the progressive era of the late 19th century and early 20th centuries, Dayton became a center of political reform. Dayton became the first larger city in the nation to hire a city manager.
In this documentary, we seek to help you understand the historical development of Dayton, recent developments in the Wright Dunbar area, and why this specific project is significant to not only Dayton but also urban redevelopment nationally. The Wright Dunbar area provides an alternate model for urban redevelopment that involves community involvement, creating not only housing but jobs, and serves as a cultural experience for the community. Wilbur Wright was born in Millville, Indiana on April 16, 1867, and Orville Wright was born in Dayton, Ohio, August 19, 1871. Both of the young men were both interested in mechanics and were early entrepreneurs. They became fascinated with flight when their father bought them a toy helicopter as a gift. This moment led to the Wright brothers becoming major pioneers of aviation. They may have not had their initial flight in Ohio, but that is where they honed their skills. Paul Lawrence Dunbar was born on June 27, 1872 in Dayton, Ohio. In his short life, he made many achievements. Born from former slave, he was encouraged to read at an early age. As a youth in school, he excelled as the only African American in his class. Involved heavily in extracurricular activity, primarily dealing with the language of arts. Dunbar's first book of poetry, entitled Oak and Ivy, was published in 1892. From there on, he will publish other works and had a very successful career.
The Wright Dunbar Business District, also known as the West 3rd Street Historic District, is a commercial district made up of 2- and 3-story brick buildings built between 1885 and 1924. As is typical of turn-of-the-century commercial districts, most of the buildings originally had stores on the ground level with offices and residences above. The style of the buildings is predominantly Romanesque Revival, with several examples of Italianate and Classical Revival buildings enlivening the mix. It is also architecturally significant as a cohesive collection of late 19th and early 20th century buildings, which give people the opportunity to experience a virtually uninterrupted historic streetscape. The neighborhood was one of Dayton's first streetcar suburbs and oldest development to the building of the Dayton Street Railway by W.P. Huffman and H.S. Williams in 1869.
The Wright Dunbar Village is an area that has had a lot of ups and downs throughout history. It began as a very thriving district because the Wright brothers built their bicycle shop off of 3rd Street, which is where the first airplane was modeled. Also, Paul Lawrence Dunbar lived off of Summit Street, which is now Paul Lawrence Dunbar Street. The Wrights and Dunbar both grew up together as they went to Central High. Devin Berry explains, there was a place that had a lot of culture in Dayton, once known as Dayton's Harlem because of many contemporaries that inhabited the area. The area became a thriving African American area, but through the years, due to highway construction, redlining, disinvestment, and abandonment, Berry gives detail, blacks had no choice where they could live. Therefore, professionals and blue-collar workers lived in the same vicinity. Once professionals were able to relocate, they left the area, leaving behind only the blue-collar workers. Berry continues, this was not an area where you did not want to be in the 70s and 80s. Many people had bootleg establishments that sold alcohol illegally, a very rough area to say the least. The area was considered to be demolished by the city in 1988.
Fortunately, in 1995, the city decided to approve the Wright Dunbar Urban Renewal Plan to revitalize the area. The whole plan would not have been able to occur if it was not for a few grassroots organizations that fought for the area's preservation. In 1981, a nonprofit organization was formed called Aviation Trail, Inc. that bought the former Wright Cycle Shop and Wright Job Printers property. When the city planned to demolish the area, the group threatened to stand in front of bulldozers and the city fell back. The next year, a group named Inventing Flight organized to develop a national park, revamped the district, and organized a centennial celebration in 2003. Congress created the Dayton Aviation Heritage National Historic Park in 1992. There was also a group of African American women who influenced the national park to also recognize Paul Laurence Dunbar. They refused to sell their homes along with 24 other residents.
History and aviation have always been key components of the Wright Dunbar Business District. The district is the site where the Wright brothers designed the world's first powered airplane, where Paul Laurence Dunbar penned his world-renowned poetry, and where Joseph Desch, known as the key to breaking the Enigma code during World War II, and credited with the first patent for the modern digital computer, lived and worked. The spirit of innovation continues today, and the Wright Dunbar Business District is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is home to the Dayton Aviation National Historic Park. The residential area of the adjacent Wright Dunbar neighborhood offers market-rate homes and attracts a diverse mix of families, young professionals, and retirees. Though many city neighborhoods throughout the country have suffered in the past 40 years with the movement of people away from the city to the suburbs, this trend is shifting as people have begun to rediscover historic city neighborhoods as desirable places to live, shop, and play, and is reflected in the Wright Dunbar neighborhood.